Hello, my name is Tier Welling, and oh, please subscribe to my page and also hit the little bell to the right of the subscribe button because then, as I do new videos, you'll be updated of the new videos. My name is Tier Welling, and I'm going to describe to you the image that I have been making today. Well, actually, it's a compound image of a large number of things that I have been working on for a bit of time. And the video that I'm working on right now is a a first attempt to explain this compound of images. This image is of the Roman god Janus, which is two heads, one looking west, one looking east. And because this is um, the year 2020, November the 11th, the 9th day of November, 11:42 or 23:42 p.m. And I we're coming up to in several weeks from now. There's going to be a New Year celebrations. There's December 31st to January 1st. Well, in that you have old man looking west and baby, infant, or toddler looking east. That's Janus. That's where the concept of Janus semi came from. Janus, it came from that concept came from Janus, and Janus came from the pyramids of Egypt. So you see Janus, you see the pyramids of Egypt, you see the double spine, you see from mid back up is the west face, and from mid back down is the east face. The spine is the okay, and how I created that line is by drawing a dot in the middle of the Djedefre pyramid, straight down to the middle of the Khafre pyramid, the Khufu pyramid, Khafre, Menkaure, on down each of the steps down to the bent pyramid, and that created that created the anatomy of the double spine of Janus. Add to that the causeways, which is what the subject of this thing about is. The causeways are in the form of the Aten stretching to the east from north to southeast. Well, I came up with this, came up with the Janus and thing about a year, 14, 15 months ago. And the work that I was doing was in response to, now I'd been working on the pyramids for about 7.5, 8 years now. Well, actually, I've been working on the causeway specifically for 8, 9, 10, 11-ish years, 8 or 9 years. The build up to it was I wasn't thinking about the pyramids yet until click, and then all of a sudden I was thinking about the pyramids. That has to do with immediately after becoming a Freemason, after I did the parameters to become a Freemason, I was able to be a Freemason and do those interesting things. And I became a third degree, and then I went to do the Scottish. I did the Scottish Rite and went through those degree processes, and then I became a Shriner, and I did those degree processes, and then I moved from Florida to where I'm at now, and I did the York Rite, and I went through those processes, and as far as I know, I'm still a member of all of them, possibly minus Shriner because of the NPD, but I'm not sure about that right now. Of course, during a plague, it's hard to tell what's going on with anybody's finances. So, as I have worked and done things, I've collected information. So, for the last just shy of 3 decades, I've been working on the Elder Futhark calendar, which is a 15-day calendar with 5 days of 16 days and little one over there every 4 years. That's the 16th day. The days are linked to the major high holy days of the Earth's orbit around the sun, the equinoxes and solstices, the midsummer, the midwinter. We just passed October 31st, Easter, and a few others, but they're not important right now. The extra one, this extra one over here, that's also excessively important, is the one that comes and goes is February 2nd, which is represented in the Julian calendar, well, the Gregorian calendar by February 29th. That was added to the calendar by Pope Gregor in 1580-ish, based off of, my guess is, based on the best mathematician in the world. 70, 80 years previous to that would be Leonardo da Vinci, who figured it all out. But it took the Vatican 80 plus years, 80 or so years, to be able to accept the mathematical corrections that Leonardo da Vinci put into place. So, but there's a mountain of stuff that Da Vinci did that was not allowed into history books. But that's a different subject altogether. Although part of what he did was this work, and I have a very strong theory, not hypothesis, there's too much evidence for it, a strong theory that the first, what European culture that went into space, or at least attempted to go into space, that created a space agency, created aircraft, created aeronautics, created rocketry, and that kind of stuff, would be France. And the French version of NASA was Versailles, is Versailles. Those, but if you, it takes a very special way to perspective of looking at the 50 inventions. By the way, every single solitary one of the inventions that is absolutely beyond key to space flight and aeronautics. He created a functioning version of that in half a millennia previous technology. You just have to look at it from a very specific perspective, and the mathematics is not arguable. His inventions are not arguable. From the rocket to the multi-directional rocket to a capsule, a hermetically sealed capsule, to a submarine where the hermetically sealed comes from, and the spaceship and the pressure suit, the scuba, and the mobile launch tower, and his expert understanding of ink and oak chemistry, inorganic and organic chemistry, ink and oak. So you have ink and oak. He was an expert in, which means that you had all the skills to be able to do all the chemical stuff and make rockets and that kind of stuff. He did von Braun basically singularly, and he had an understanding of electromagnetic waves and frequencies, which means that he had an understanding about radios and that kind of stuff. But his technology was so limited. What does that have to do with anything? Well, if you look, that this is an EM spectrum, so an electromagnetic spectrum. This modified is what Hedy Lamarr and some others used to create the radio telescopes of the post 1930s Common Era thing. Hedy was an immigrant Jew, a female, Hollywood starlet, and a mechanical prodigy. So therefore, she couldn't claim almost any credit for her laying the foundation and basic engineering works at the Very Large Array, just on the St. Augustine Plain, just outside of Socorro, New Mexico. The character of Ellie Ann Arroway, written by Carl Sagan, was inspired based off of Hedy Lamarr. Her earliest claim to fame, after she was a spy, a double agent spy a counteragent spy for the Third Reich. She was dragooned into service and had to do various sort of things. So she had to produce her creative talents and juices to the work for the Third Reich, and the French resistance got her out, and she told everything she possibly could think of to tell the Allies, going, these guys are evil. This is years before they started really doing truly evil things. She went, I see it on the wall. I'm not playing this game. So she was a career spy. Same as Da Vinci. Da Vinci was a career spy. He was career papa spy. You have, the Q branch. Name me an invention that Da Vinci worked on that's not found in a James Bond invention, courtesy of Ian Fleming's work and his ideas. What he was his Q branch is almost based off of Leonardo da Vinci's work. I mean, the car's a capsule and all the little gadgets and gadgets and that kind of stuff. Those are those are for the most part inventions that Leonardo da Vinci worked on 5 centuries beforehand. So you have Janus, and you have the Causeways of the pyramids, and you have the pyramids. Janus and the pyramids is the same thing, and you have the Roman culture, and you have something else. The the Romans used the ceremony that a Egyptian fertility rite that had very little documentation with it. They knew it and they used it, and the Romans called it the memento mori ceremony. The memento mori ceremony is zero, the placeholder, the zero placeholder is a community when they come together. You have part 1A, which is some type of a party A impacts party B in some way, shape, or form. Either causes B to move or alters B's direction, equal and opposite reaction. Newton's rule number 1, 2, and 3. An object still tends to stay at rest, tends to stay at rest. An object in motion tends to stay in motion, and equal and opposite reaction when object A interferes with the trajectory or the movement of object B. So you have part 1A is some type of an impact. Part 1B, mind you, is some type of an emotional response. There's some kind of a wait a minute, was this cool or not cool? Well, there's several aspects of that's going on. The Romans used it as a way to dispatch 1A, the person who was dispatched in 1A, the clergy and the commander or general or warrior or politician would then be the recipient of that dispatch. The soul would then go to the afterlife, which we're getting very, very close to the point where I need to talk to you about, and why the graphic is so extremely important. You have 1B, you have an emotional connection with somebody, and that person, the clergy member, being the specific of choice for either the clergy or the politician, the general, the soldier, the commander, what have you. They would go then be with the individual of their chosen specified want, need, and or desire, and that the other clergy person, 1B, would then seal through the emotional act, seal the soul of the recently dispatched to the afterlife, instead of the commander or the general or the politician or the commander or just a soldier or what have you. They would then, in video game terminology, they would have an extra life. So they would go into battle with an extra life, assuming they were immortal. Okay. Now this clinical situation lasted for centuries. In fact, there's still aspects. There's the basic foundation of the memento mori ceremony was name changed into the witch burning times, and then name changed again into other various assorted actions and activities in the modern world. But the same behavior patterns are still very, very apparent all over the place. I mean, you can't look at an action movie. You have an action movie where there's lots and lots of people being dispatched, and you have, in almost all action movies, have some kind of an emotional response, a love interest or the protecting of a child, or a flat out love scene, or something to that effect. This is SOP for hundreds, if not thousands, if not tens of thousands of examples in Hollywood. Now, a couple 100,000 examples may be a better way to narrow down the fact that you can see these behavior patterns. It's difficult to find a piece of entertainment that does not have these 1A, 1B, 2, some kind of a parade, some kind of a two or three or four people go off into the sunset. That's part two, is the parade, is the acknowledgement of Janus. Well, the Janus part is the sun. Into the sunset is the rays of the sun, which would be literally the structure of Janus. And you have two or more people involved. Well, an audience watching two people, that's three people. That's a parade. Well, just because there are several, it happens to be many people in the audience watching it, either at the time or later, that's still group involvement. It's the same thing. Just because it's not a formalized Roman parade down the Amber Road does not mean it changes the structure all that much. The 1C is what we're talking about. The space, the action between 1B and 1C and 2. 1C is where some kind of a, as Gene Roddenberry pointed out, figured out, determined in some way, shape, or form. 1C he fictionalized into faster than light travel. Others have fictionalized it into a concept called a warp bubble, to be able to travel into the 1C and then go faster than light to another location or another dimension or another planet or another plane, another, who knows. That's the destination is not the point. It's the being able to get into the 1C is the point to why the Enterprise can actually travel at warp 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, whatever. However, the travel is the point, that the travel is the 1C. Now, something of profound interest that needs to be significantly addressed now that the basics of it have been laid out, which the basics of this situation are difficult to work with and pile together on a good day, because the basics have a considerably large amount to do with the architecture of the objects in question. The architecture of the objects in question. You have, as you see in this graphic, you have the double spine of Janus pointed horizontally, although the most of the rotation of this map is horizontal to north-south. North-south is usually, on almost all maps, is usually up and down. East-west is usually side to side. Well, this has north and south being side to side, and east-west being up and down, which is very Mason associated. The long axis is east-west. The skinny axis is north-south. And the Masonic rectangular rooms where stated communications occur. But you have the causeways of the pyramids. Now, the pyramids are not small buildings, and they're built so well that overwhelming majority of them, the evidence is still clearly present. The King's Chamber is clearly there. It can hold several dozen people at once. It's a substantial room, despite the fact that it was built 4,500 years ago. There's buildings in the modern age that are a couple centuries, and they're barely holding themselves together. These buildings have required basically no maintenance for 4,500 years, minus being left alone, and they're fine and dandy today as they were when the first second the construction was finished. So, and outside you have a causeway, which most of the causeways have been fairly hardcore battered up. What's cheaper, more effective? Going miles and miles away to a quarry, or pulling the already cut stones from the causeway and using them in your home or business or something like that. Well, of course, the stones that are really, really easy, the limestone that's not that heavy, from the causeways is going to get pilfered first. So the used to be several miles of causeway has been whittled down to a few feet or so, or just a small hint of it in the architecture. Well, this is the point. This is the key point. The bent pyramid on the farthest south pyramid in the double spine of Janus, the bent pyramid's causeway bisects the cave underneath where King Solomon's temple used to be 270-ish miles away. That Causeway is built radically specific because it's only about 2 miles long. So you have you have the bent pyramid and you have the causeway, and it ends, solid ends, period. The stones end, the construction stops, and and the Nile is very, very short, small distance later, or the Nile is at the end of the causeway. You then have the Nile, which could be several 100 feet wide. You then have the entire western side of Egypt and the Sinai and Levant lands and all kinds of other stuff and all buildings, all kinds of stuff that are there, not or what makes a difference. Then we get to the entrance to King Solomon's temple, at least where it was. So you have 2 miles of infrastructure building and 2 miles of infrastructure, and you have 200 some miles of space that is important but not critical, and then you have the structure. My friends, this is a poetic license version of you you leave the temple, the pyramid, you walk out of that thing, you leave it, you go down the causeway, which is guide, which is aim, which is navigation, and then you arrive 200 some miles later at the destination. That could be defined as a Heisen-Rosen bridge, or what Gene talked about being a warp. You're warped faster than light travel. You warped from the Bent Pyramids causeway to the King Solomon's temple. That can be applied to each of the 16 major causeways that come from major pyramids, not the minor ones, not the little ones, the big ones, the big boys. So this is the infrastructure that I was thinking about and talking about. Now, part of my museum, the first ideas that I had regarding my museum was to build the spine of Janus, which I was 5 years from learning about what that thing was. Well, 4.5 years from learning what that was. The spine, the Janus, the Roman ceremony, the Roman culture, all that stuff was still just shy of half a decade away from me learning about. But my initial ideas for the museum that I built in my dining room, which I have now maxed out the space in my dining room to be able to build anything more. Those models, what I wanted to do first was to create a model, was to put a pyramid on a corkboard, a piece of corkboard, and then have on the other side of the room, which is not that far away, have another piece of corkboard, foam board, excuse me, and build the other side, build the King Solomon's temple, or the cave of the Nativity, or build. And I did a little bit of that, but I kept trying to compress it onto a single board instead of going with the original idea, which was have this board be the King Solomon's temple and this board being the pyramid that its causeway bisects. And I'm now trying to undo those mistakes so that I can do this. I can actually do this in the neighborhood of correctly. So I will have to redo some of this infrastructure and such. But what you're looking at, and thank you very, very, very much for your immeasurable amount of help, my friend in Tulsa, and my ex-acquaintance in my other person that I used to know in Tulsa, Oklahoma, for helping me create this graphic, because if both of you had not have done what you did, this information would be much, much more difficult to accumulate, put together, and do. So I thank you very, very much for all your tireless work and effort, and sorry for the emotional situations that led to this work that was bumpy on a good day. So as you look at that, at the concentric U-shaped, and then the autumn, the autumn, and then the U-shape, and then the ever widening shapes, you're going to see the younger Futhark, which is the elder Futhark of the months of the year, 24 to 15 days, 15 days each, with 5 of them being 16 days. Well, each one of those 16-day months is the younger Futhark. Well, this is the representation of the younger Futhark. And I translated the graphics of the elder Futhark symbols into English, so the English can be read Futhark, GWHNI, and so on. Of those graphics, those letters, each one of those wedges is that character's name. So one of the larger issues that I had to think through. Now add this location and this location are two different pads for Gene Roddenberry. These are two different pads, and fictional reference, of course. Of course that's fiction, but this stuff is real. Now, but Gene Roddenberry was a clandestine part spy for the OSS before it was called the CAA. At least semi sort of kind of that's semi true. But that's the rest of that information. The rest of that information is all classified. So the information that I'm talking about is the fact that you're on location A, which would be the Bent Pyramid, which is on the farthest south on in Egypt, the farthest south pyramid in the spine of Janus. You leave that place, which would be in the semicircle A, and you arrive in semicircle B at destination Y. You leave X and arrive at Y, but you're also in a semicircle. You're in semicircle A, and you arrive in semicircle B. Just to give variable definitions for it, not to be very specific about the technical information. Well, where the shape that I'm pulling this from is a part of human anatomy. If you can figure out what that means, great, and if not, then you don't need to know. But to be very, very specific, those two subjects have a lot to do with each other, because obviously with anatomy you're going to have ink and oak, and there's going to be a lot of interesting aspects that the Vatican and Puritan culture are really, really, really not okay with. But the mathematics and the subject are still there, and the architecture is still there, and it's thousands and thousands of years old. And there's aspect, and since there's calendar associations with this, there's an aspect of time with this. And yes, you can fill in the obvious blank what is going on, because obviously Gene Roddenberry has covered that subject. And see here, they did it at least once or twice in the TV show. They did it twice in the TV show. They took the Enterprise back itself, and they used that what can be defined several decades later as a modified version of the Stargate. The people that created the Stargate modified the thing from that circle thing that Spock used the tricorder and said, "I am a fool. I could have been recording this the whole time." So he started recording it, and then McCoy got up, saw something, and then jumped through that the what can be defined as the Chapa Eye, the event horizon of the Stargate. He would jump through and then immediately erased all future history, because the woman McCoy saved went on to she was a peacenik, so she figured out a way to force the American government not to get involved with against the Third Reich, to save all those lives. Well, the Third Reich kept in power and significantly altered all aspects of future history, and there's all kinds of really, really not cool things that happened because of McCoy. The fictional character of McCoy did that, and Spock went, "Okay, well, I can play this. I can readjust and play this back." And Spock did all kinds of very sort of things like that. In the movies, the same thing occurred. Interesting enough, the the time traveler the next time was not was well uh, Nimoy was a member of the crew who did that. He wasn't singular out as he was the one that jumped through the thing by himself and altered time. He was part of the crew that took I think it was a Vulcan vertebrae or warbird or something, and um, which is really interesting because the same actor who played the Klingon who had his ship stolen from him in order to be able to to do that going back to 1980 something San Francisco to be able to pick up a couple of humpback whales to bring them back to the future. The actor who had his ship stolen from him was Christopher Lloyd, the actor. Several years later, he co-starred in another movie about time travel, where he and the second movie in that sequence, which the first movie was about the Voyager and those interesting information. The second movie was ended with with an aspect of time travel. The second movie in the Back to the Future was about time travel, where Christopher Lloyd played the scientist who owned the machine, who Biff stole this time machine to go back to 1954 and changed changed time to and radically change things, which both with one of those events had to be altered and changed to be able to fix it and erase Biff or his real life counterpart, a very not good person, partially who has been semi partially erased from the timeline. But the fictional version, his fortune was erased from the timeline, and they went back to semi normal. Very interesting stuff here. You know, Christopher Lloyd played two separate characters who had time machines stolen from them, and one timeline was fixed, and good things occurred from that. So the other timeline there had to be a secondary situation to be able to fix that mistake. So if you look at the Auton and the concentric circles, now those concentric circles I created them by taking key architectural locations and putting a ring there, taking key measurements from the pyramids, from the pyramids west, north, and south, of course, and then going, okay, this administration building or this palace or this castle or this fortification or this landmark, the mouth of the Red Sea, the Sea of Reeds, or um, the capital, the palace, the seat of the Pharaoh of Egypt, or various assorted other key architectural. Uh, I don't mean it can't just be a house. It has to be Appomattox or the courthouse of Appomattox where Lee surrendered to Grant, or the White House, or the Tammany Hall, or the Taj Mahal. It has to be that kind of thing to be able to be a UNESCO World Heritage location. Well, that would be a place where the semicircle would be stopped at is a UNESCO location that is World Heritage or radically Western culture heritage information building where a person is a person's grave, and I don't mean a person Joe Schmo. I mean a king, a really important king like Constantine or Catherine the Great or Ivan the Terrible or Queen Elizabeth the First. These are the kind of people, all the kind of graves that I'm referring to, not just Sally Smith or something. So the the concentric circles are measured based on UNESCO and similar, and the causeways make the fan, and the line is the pyramids, which is Janus, and But the point of the architecture is about pointing out, the point of this video and the architecture is pointing out that the quantum jump from here to here, and the fact that the calendar is involved, so you have time involved, and you have a time jump from here to here, which has an obvious other meaning to it, which I alluded to several times in the movies and other things that I was talking about, as well as Leonardo da Vinci was on the violent side of extremely passionate about the concept of time. In fact, he invented a couple of clocks and different types of time and measuring devices. So his uber genius was put toward that as well. So there's lots and lots of things going on here, which makes life very, very interesting to study. And this is a subject that needs to be further explored a lot. My name is Tier Welling. Thank you very, very much for paying attention. Remember to hit the subscribe button, and to the immediate right, click on that bell, and the next videos that I have, you'll get an alert to come see my next videos. Thank you so much.